For more details on this story, we are now being joined live by Richard Kimber from Hong Kong. Hi, Richard. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, we know that the police has banned the July 1st annual march in Hong Kong over fears of the security legislation and its backlash. And now the police has arrested more than 50 protesters in Hong Kong, though this march was largely a silent protest. Then why the arrests and how have the protesters reacted? We are seeing some disturbing visuals.
Well, certainly the pro-democracy camp and the protest organisers are determined to continue to show their opposition to this legislation and to the Hong Kong government. They feel that there's no political means for them to do that, which is why they keep coming out and protesting. They're determined to continue to do so on July 1st, as you mentioned, on Wednesday of this week, when this law will likely have already been passed. The expectation is it will be passed on Tuesday morning Hong Kong time, and that they will be their biggest show of demonstrating their continued frustration with the way not only this bill has been introduced, but the specific contents of the bill, which are still unknown to most people in Hong Kong because no draft has been made public here. And so, despite the police banning it, there is a high expectation there will be a large protest on Wednesday and an expectation that the police, if they continue with their current line of policing, will crack down on that relatively quickly and try and prevent there becoming a large gathering in the way that there was very often last year.
Right. Now, the police has said that, they've banned these protests and vigils because of the COVID-19 outbreak. But is that really the true picture, or is there another reason for banning them?
Well, the police have been very consistent with all of their responses. They've banned a number of applications to hold protest marches in the recent weeks, and because these social virus restrictions still extend beyond the scope of this July 1st event, they really had no option if they wanted to be consistent. However, because other aspects of the coronavirus social gathering restrictions have been eased in Hong Kong, there's now no limit, for example, on indoor gatherings. Restaurants, karaoke bars and so on are now open. Many of the pro-democracy camp are accusing the police of simply using the coronavirus restrictions as a means to try and quash any kind of protest. And because these events, both the Tiananmen event last month, on June 4th, and then this event coming up on July 1st, are so significant in terms of Hong Kong culture and society, it's becoming a real touchstone because these events almost go beyond politics. They're traditions that have existed in Hong Kong ever since the handover, and so pro-democracy activists are determined to make sure that they keep being upheld.
Right. Now, my final question. We know that China's top legislative body is in Beijing for the 3-day conference, and it is expected to fast-track the new security legislation over Hong Kong. So what can we expect, and how will the pro-democracy protesters respond if this legislation does in fact get passed?
Well, it now seems like there's no real question as to whether it will be passed. It's really, as you say, a case of what will happen next. So some very senior and more prominent pro-democracy figures here in Hong Kong have already said they fully expect to be specifically and individually targeted by this legislation, and they're preparing even to be arrested as soon as this week because they think that the Hong Kong government will enact this law and try and police it very, very quickly. Right. There are other camps that expect that, in fact, Hong Kong will play a longer-term strategy and not seek to implement the law very quickly at all and just let things settle for a time and try and back up their claim that this will just simply stabilise the city and will not affect 99.99% of Hong Kongers. And so rather than do anything too provocative with regards to arresting democracy advocates, they will in fact just let things sit for a while. So that's the uncertainty that exists at the moment, and it also affects the business community because while all this is happening in Hong Kong and China, places like the United States starting to up their rhetoric and talk of sanctions on Hong Kong. Right. This could, of course, play into the confidence that businesses feel about operating here. So a great deal of uncertainty about how exactly the effects of this law will play out in the coming days and weeks.
All right, Richard, thank you so much for all your insights and for joining us.